Good afternoon, everybody. So, I want to share something with you guys. I laugh at myself because how I take things and tie everything in together. So, this is something that I wrote a couple of months ago. I'm sitting and I'm watching. My favorite trilogy of all time is The Lord of the Rings. I don't know if you guys ever watched it, but The Lord of the Rings are powerful. They're long movies, so if you're gonna watch them, they're at least 2.5 to 3 hours long each, and it's the trilogy. So I love this trilogy, and I've watched it. I want to say maybe 15 times, if not maybe more. That's how much I enjoy it. And so about 3 months ago, I'm watching the second one, which is The Two Towers, which is the second one of the three. And as I'm watching it, and they're showing this one scene, and I'm there's this character. His name is Gollum. I don't know if you ever watched the trilogy, or if you haven't, I encourage that you go and watch it. So in this one scene, I got very emotional, very choked up because Gollum was going through something that every single one of us have experienced in our lives, if not once, then probably multiple times. So this morning, as I was sitting, I decided, let me write all this down, and I added a lot to what I originally wrote back 3 months ago. So I'm going to read exactly everything how I wrote it. So, The Lord of the Ring, The Two Towers, okay? And I'm going to tie this into scripture, believe it or not. The Lord of the Ring, Two Towers. There's a scene of internal struggle of good versus evil. And this scene is, we see Gollum's good side battle his evil side. At one point, Gollum was a good man, but evil enticed him with a precious ring, which he ultimately gave into it. It turned him into a hideous creature. So then I went on to extrapolate on this. In this character, we see an internal struggle of good versus evil. Gollum's good side wants to do what's right. He wants to obey his master Frodo. We notice that when Gollum does what is good in obedience to his master, he's always in a joyful mood, and somehow the lighting is always brighter in these scenes. The sun is shining, the trees are blossoming, and so forth. But his evil side battles his good side continuously. And the times that he allows the evil to control him, which is most often, his only desire is to destroy his master Frodo and Frodo's friend Sam. In these scenes, Gollum is depicted more hideous. His appearance is darker. His face is no longer cheerful but sinister. Even the environment is darker and gloomier. As I mentioned, at one point Gollum was a good man, but evil enticed him with a precious ring, which he ultimately gave into it. It turned him into a hideous creature. The power of the ring was evil continually. In this powerful trilogy, we see that the ring had power not only over Gollum, but over any who turned their eyes towards it. The ring wasn't a regular ring in appearance, but one of precious gold, and that's why Gollum called it my precious. Again, I encourage you to go watch the trilogy from the beginning, because you see everything that I mentioned, how it all comes to pass. So I'm going to give you just a very brief description of some of these characters and how all this came to be, the ring, and who some of the characters are. So I wrote, who was the evil in this trilogy, and how did this ring come to be? So, The Lord of the Rings describes a quest to destroy the One Ring, a powerful and evil talisman created by the Dark Lord Sauron to control Middle-earth. Sauron lost the ring in battle thousands of years before the beginning of the story. This reminds me of how Lucifer and 1/3 of the angels were cast out of heaven in his battle when he was trying to supplant God as the Most High. So, who did this evil power use? The wizard Gandalf, who's a good wizard, describes Saruman, not Sauron. Sauron is the evil one, the head. Saruman as the chief of Mordor. Saruman was a good wizard also, and head of the White Council that forced Sauron from Mirkwood at the end of Tolkien's earlier book, The Hobbit. So we see how Saruman's power and the White Wizard, the Council of the White Wizards, how they forced they defeated Sauron, who was evil. He notes that Sauron's great knowledge of the ring's power created by Saruman. So we see how Saruman knew how powerful the ring was, and it was created by evil himself. We can say that Sauron is Satan and that Saruman is the Antichrist, Satan's worker, because ultimately Sauron, the wizard, becomes the dark wizard, and he becomes evil, and he wants the power of the ring for Sauron, Satan himself. So why do I want to share this story with you? This is where I go into dive into scripture. Why do I want to share this story with you? Well, we know that the Bible tells us in Ephesians 6:12, for we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of darkness in this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. And it also tells us in John 10:10, the thief does not come except to steal, kill, and destroy. And it tells us in 1 Peter 5:8, be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, walks around like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. Just like Sauron used the ring to gain control over those who desired it, Satan uses precious things, quote unquote, like money, power, fame, material things, and even people to entice us and lure us away from the true light is Jesus Christ. Just like he did with Gollum and anyone else who set their eyes and heart on material things, the ring, he tries to use the things of this world to destroy us. We, like Gollum, live in the flesh, and there is constant battle raging within us, a battle between good and evil. But good will always prevail if we focus our eyes and hearts on the true light, who we know is Jesus Christ, and not the shiny objects the enemy tries to entice us with, the things of this world. Are you being a good Gollum who is surrounded by light and goodness, or are you being the evil Gollum who is constantly surrounded by darkness and a heart set on destruction? The choice is yours. I pray you choose to live a life that's continuously good, not good for the world or to the world, but good towards the things of the Lord. I don't want to spoil the end of the movie for you, so go watch it and find out what happens to Gollum in the end. So I ask you, is Gollum's fate going to be your fate also? So just go watch the movie if you want. So I finished this off with, my wife often asks me, she's always asking me this, why do you make everything about the Bible? I say because everything is about the Bible. If we look at everything with spiritual eyes and a spiritual heart, you will see godly lessons in everything. Jesus said in Matthew 7, verse 7 through 8, ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be open to you. For everyone who asks receives, and the one who seeks finds, and the one who knocks, the door will be opened. But James follows up with, you lust and do not have. You murder and covet and get not obtained. You fight and war, yet you do not have because you do not ask. You ask and do not receive because you ask amiss, that you may spend it on yourselves. Adulterers and adulteresses, do you not know that friendship with the world is enmity with God? Whoever therefore wants to be a friend of the world makes himself an enemy of God. And that's in James chapter, I believe it's chapter 4, verses 3 through 4. And so I highlighted here verse 3, and it said, James said, you ask and you do not receive, because you ask amiss, that you may spend it on your pleasures. So, and also he goes on to say that, friendship with the world is enmity with God. So are you hungering and desiring and asking for the things of the world? Okay. So you ask God, but you are asking for things that will gain you nothing in heaven. Most often, the things that are more value and are more precious, like the ring was to Gollum, and are more precious in the Lord's eyes, are not the grand and shiny things that stand out like the ring, but the small and simple things, like a kind word, a hand that is reaching out, more to give than to receive, a heart that is bent and drawn towards those who Jesus calls the least of these. And you can read that in Matthew 25:40 when the Lord talks about the least of these. I pray that this video teaches you and encourages you to look at this world and the things that transpire in it with spiritual eyes. Guys, we can't just look at, and that's the end of what I wrote, we can't just look at the things that happen in this world or the things that happen in our lives and around us as just a coincidence, as a happenstance. As I've always said, as a Christian, I don't believe in coincidence. I believe in that everything happens for a reason and a purpose. And I also believe that the Lord will reveal to us the things that are happening through these things if we ask with spiritual eyes and the spiritual heart. I don't look at the things the way, at least I don't think so, the way that most of the world looks at it. Like, I don't just look at a movie and say, oh, it's a movie. Yeah, I look at it for enjoyment, and I really enjoy it and I appreciate it. But I'm always reminded of Scripture. Wow, that's like what Scripture says. Wow, this creature is battling. He's having an internal struggle between evil and good. You see this poor creature, who used to be a man, and he allowed his hunger, his desire, his drive for this ring. The only thing he wanted was this ring because it had so much evil power behind it. It reminds me of people who get addicted to drugs and things like that, how it becomes so powerful that it just overtakes them. And you see a person who was once beautiful, a person who was in good health, a person who was not skin and bones, and when they get addicted, when they get drawn by that drug or that alcohol, all of a sudden they look a lot older than they are. They look, all beaten up and worn down and dirty, and they do anything just to get that next hit, that next, drink, to the point where they just allow that to control their lives, and their lives get destroyed, completely destroyed. So again, we'll watch the movie and you see the end, what happens to Gollum. So it's very important that we see these things and we use the things of this world as biblical lessons, as lessons from the Lord. It's like, you see, if you do this is what happens. And yeah, we all go through these struggles, but you see that when Gollum allowed the evil to draw him and to pull him away, and he paid more attention to that, his life became darker. Okay, the things around him became darker and more sinister, and the light started diminishing. So if you're a Christian and you're living in the world and in the church, you can't have both, because as Jesus says, you either worship one or you despise the other. He says you can't have two masters. If you're a Christian and you're hungering and desiring for the things of this world, I caution you to be very careful, because those things will just grab a hold of you and take control of you. Where, if let's say you're going to go to a football game or a baseball game, and, and you say, you know what, I'll go to church next Sunday, I'm going to miss it this Sunday. And I'm not saying that you need to go to church every Sunday, but if you're saying, I'm not going to go to church, or I don't need to go to church because I can just sit home and read my Bible whenever, or I can just watch a sermon on TV, and then, you're watching a good movie and like, oh, you know what, I can watch this sermon after the movie, and then all of a sudden a second movie comes on, and you're like, oh, you know what, maybe, I could do it tomorrow because I'm tired now and I'm not going to pay attention. Before you know it, those things are pulling you away from the things of the Lord. So we need to be very careful that we are deeply rooted and grounded in the things of the Lord. Yes, we're still to enjoy the things that the Lord gives us in this world, but we're not to put them first. Those aren't to be our priorities. Our priorities should be the things of the Lord first. Because as I've said, if you're asking for things of this world, they're going to benefit nothing in heaven, okay? Those things are going to burn up, as Scripture tells us. Those things are going to fade away. Eternal things we want to look for, okay? Things like I said, a kind word to a person, helping somebody who's down and out, feeding the people who are in need, the homeless, sheltering them, and whatever you may do it. I mean, you don't have to personally do it yourself if you can't. If you could, it's a beautiful blessing, because I've done it sometimes. But there are many ministries out there who will step up and do that. So you can support those ministries so that they can further the work of the kingdom. So in essence, you're taking part of that work, which is really beautiful. So, but anyway, so that's how my brain thinks. I was watching the movie and I really felt bad for this character. Why? Because I know there are many people, not just characters in the movie, they're actual live people, human beings who go through and are going through what this character in this movie went through, which was a constant battle and struggle between evil and good. You're being torn between evil and good, and I pray that evil evil is defeated in your life. So anyway, I just figured I'd share that with you guys, and I hope you enjoyed it. God bless and take care.